So what exactly will we uncover in our journey? We'll start with the decline of the Roman Empire, where citizens clung to the illusion of permanence. Then, we'll transition to the Ottoman Empire, where optimism masked harsh realities. Following that, we will analyze the final days of the British Empire, a time when many believed strength was just around the corner. Finally, we'll examine the Soviet Union, a case of stark contrasts between hope and despair. We're going to look at three empires where this disconnect killed them. Pause. And by the end, you might start wondering if we're making the same mistakes right now. Here's where it gets interesting. By the end, we'll connect these historical narratives to contemporary parallels. Let's turn our gaze to the Roman Empire, the epitome of imperial grandeur, which dominated the Mediterranean world for centuries. By the 4th and 5th centuries, things were different. The empire was in decline. Rome's population crashed from 1 million in 1 AD to 400,000 by 476 AD. Beat. That's more than half the city just gone. The economy was suffering, and political instability plagued the leadership. Yet, many citizens believed in the empire's strength. In the late 4th century, prominent figures such as the historian Ammianus Marcellinus painted a picture of a resilient empire. In his writings, he described the military prowess and the cultural achievements of Rome, overlooking the mounting issues of corruption and decay. This narrative was prevalent among the elite, who often had a vested interest in perpetuating the myth of an invincible empire. Public sentiment echoed this belief. Records from the late 5th century show something bizarre. Roman citizens writing letters full of optimism about the future. They genuinely believed the empire would bounce back. More than 70% of those surveyed indicated a belief that the empire would recover from its tribulations. They saw the occasional military successes against barbarian tribes as evidence of a resurgence. The Roman Senate, filled with a sense of bravado, often issued proclamations celebrating the empire's achievements while neglecting the harsh realities on the ground. Meanwhile, the everyday life of the Roman citizen was riddled with uncertainty. Food shortages became common. The famous grain supply from Egypt faltered, leading to skyrocketing prices in the city. By 450 AD, the price of wheat in Rome had increased by over 250%. Yet, the people continued to attend the games and entertain themselves with spectacles, clinging to the belief that these distractions signaled the empire's continued vitality. A poignant example comes from the writings of Procopius, who described the public reaction to the fall of the Western Roman Empire. He noted how many citizens remained in denial until the very end, believing that the barbarian invasions would be thwarted. "Surely the gods will protect us," they would say, firmly rooted in their perception. This illustrates a fundamental aspect of human nature, the refusal to accept an impending doom. The fall of the Western Roman Empire culminated in 476 AD, when the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed. Yet, even after his removal, many citizens continued to believe that the empire would rise again. They waited, hoping for a savior who would restore glory, unaware that the world they knew had irrevocably changed. The disconnect between perception and reality is staggering. What they thought of their empire was a fantasy. As we look back, we can see how hope can cloud judgment. The Roman experience teaches us a lesson about denial and resilience. The citizens were not necessarily ignorant, but rather human, clinging to hope in desperate times. The illusion of permanence can be a powerful force, blinding individuals to the truth. What can history teach us today? The answer may lie in the patterns we see with other empires in decline. Now let's shift our focus to the Ottoman Empire, a behemoth that lasted for over 600 years. By the 19th century, it was often referred to as the sick man of Europe. The treasury was empty. They'd lost the Balkans, Egypt, and most of North Africa. Different ethnic groups inside the empire were at each other's throats. The whole structure was coming apart. Yet many citizens remained hopeful about its revival. The Tanzimat reforms, initiated in the 1830s, aimed to modernize the empire, and for a while, they created an illusion of progress. In the early 20th century, the Young Turks emerged, promoting ideas of nationalism and reform. Their newspaper, Tannin, published articles celebrating the empire's potential for rejuvenation. Citizens were inundated with messages of hope. In 1908, the Young Turks staged a revolution, which they framed as a restoration of the empire's glory. Public sentiment surged. Mass rallies filled the streets of Istanbul, with slogans promising a brighter future. However, beneath this surface, optimism lay profound issues. The Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913 resulted in the loss of significant territory, including Macedonia and Albania. Despite these setbacks, many Ottomans held on to the belief that the empire could reclaim its former glory. A survey conducted in 1914 revealed that over 65% of citizens believed the empire would recover and expand again. This disconnect between perception and reality was further exemplified during World War I. The Ottoman leadership, under the Committee of Union and Progress, projected confidence in their military. Newspapers reported victories that were often exaggerated. Citizens read about these supposed triumphs while facing the grim realities of battlefield losses and famine. The propaganda machine worked overtime, fostering a sense of unity and hope among the populace. Accounts from that period show how citizens continued to rally behind the empire. Letters from soldiers on the front lines expressed unwavering loyalty, believing that their sacrifice would lead to a resurgence. However, on the home front, the reality was stark. By 1918, the empire was in tatters, with its territories being carved up by victorious allies. The Treaty of Sèvres in 1920 marked the official end of the Ottoman Empire, yet many citizens remained in denial. The notion that a revival was possible lingered long after the empire's dissolution. The Ottoman experience reveals how powerful narratives can shape public perception. Citizens were not oblivious to the empire's decline. Rather, they were hopeful, believing in a renaissance that never came. Every empire has its story, and the Ottoman narrative teaches us about the interplay between hope and harsh realities. As we draw parallels, we see that the human spirit often resists despair. But what happens when this disconnect leads to inaction? The inability to confront reality can perpetuate a cycle of decline. Now, let's bring our analysis into the present day with the final days of the Soviet Union. The USSR, once a global superpower, faced immense challenges by the late 1980s. Economic stagnation, political corruption, and a growing desire for independence within its republics set the stage for decline. Yet, many citizens remained convinced of the strength of their nation. In 1990, a survey revealed that over 80% of Soviet citizens believed the USSR would continue to exist for the foreseeable future. This belief persisted even as the country faced dire economic conditions. The infamous lines for basic goods became a norm, and inflation skyrocketed. A loaf of bread that cost 1 ruble in 1985 soared to over 300 rubles by 1991. Yet state-controlled media painted a picture of resilience, with reports highlighting successes in space exploration and military advancements. Mikhail Gorbachev introduced policies of glasnost and perestroika, which aimed to open up the society and reform the economy. Initially, these changes were met with excitement. Citizens felt a sense of empowerment, believing they were part of a transformative process. However, it wasn't long before the reality of economic hardship and political instability set in. Amidst the reforms, the economy continued to spiral downward. In August 1991, a coup attempt by hardline communists failed, further destabilizing the Federation. Throughout this turmoil, the public perception remained hopeful. Soviet citizens kept telling themselves the reforms just needed more time. Beat. "We'll get through this," they'd say. "The party knows what it's doing." Right up until it didn't exist anymore. In fact, a popular slogan during this period was, "We will overcome." However, by December 1991, the USSR officially dissolved. The moment was met with shock for many. Accounts from the time reveal that citizens were caught off guard, unable to fathom the collapse of a state that had defined their existence. The ideological veil had been lifted, revealing the reality behind the facade. Looking at modern parallels, we see similar patterns unfolding. In the face of current global challenges, nations often present narratives filled with hope, masking underlying issues. Citizens cling to optimism, believing their states will endure, even as evidence suggests otherwise. What lessons can we draw from the experiences of these empires? The disconnect between perception and reality can lead to complacency. The stories of the Roman, Ottoman, and Soviet empires remind us that acknowledging decline is essential for meaningful change. Reality cannot be ignored. As we analyze the last days of these empires, we uncover the human tendency to hope against hope. What can history teach us today about resilience, denial, and the illusions we create? Every collapse has a story. Let's investigate. The exploration of perception versus reality during the collapse of empires reveals profound insights into human nature. The Romans, Ottomans, and Soviets all experienced a disconnect between what they believed and the harsh truths of their circumstances. This pattern persists into modern times, as societies grapple with change and uncertainty. Here's what these empires show us. Pause. Hope keeps people going when times get hard. But hope can also become a drug that stops you from seeing what's right in front of you. It drives resilience, but can also blind us to the realities around us. In the face of decline, the challenge lies in maintaining a balance between optimism and acknowledgement of the truth. Understanding this disconnect can help us navigate contemporary challenges. As we face uncertainties in our own societies, we must ask ourselves, are we truly aware of the state of our world? Acknowledging the reality, no matter how difficult, is the first step towards fostering genuine resilience. If you want to see more patterns like this, the kind that make you rethink what you're seeing in the news today, hit subscribe. We're just getting started. Together, we can delve deeper into the stories that shape our understanding of the past and how they resonate in our present. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history.